Fluorescent lights hum above, harsh and unyielding, slicing the room into hard planes of light and shadow. Photographs of commands and campaigns line the wall behind a polished desk where Major General Aldenbriggs sits like a carved monument to authority. Specialist Rowan Hale stands at attention, small and steady, chin level, shoulders squared, a single quiet figure at the center of the room's hush. Briggs. Circling. Your bun is out of regulation, specialist, fix it. Rowan says nothing, her hands stay at her sides, calm and contained. Two aides stand along the wall, compliance in their posture, eyes fixed straight ahead. Briggs reaches for a pair of scissors on his desk. The metal opens with a scrape that sounds far too loud in the suspended silence. Without a word, he lifts the thick, dark bun, the scissors slice through and hair falls jagged raw across Rowan's shoulders and onto the floor. He calls it a lesson, a reminder of humility. His voice is clipped, final. Rowan's face remains composed, unreadable. She exits the office with the same measured step she had upon entering. Out in the hallway, the strands that fell from her hair drift in the wake of passing soldiers. No one moves to pick them up. No one knows who she really is. Announcer VO. Quiet, steady. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Military and Veteran Stories so you never miss these true tales of courage. Tell us, where are you watching from today? Fort Brenton Hallways morning. Morning at Fort Brenton begins not with horns but with the measured rhythm of boots across waxed floors and the soft mechanical wake of printers. Specialist Rowan Hale flows through this routine like a quiet current, a folder in one hand, a tablet in the other. She's the kind of soldier people pass without seeing, the clerk who keeps reports moving and radios fed with data. Inside cramped battalion headquarters, she slips between desks, leaving comms reports and signature sheets in polite piles. Officers sign where she points without reading. She answers questions in brief, practical phrases, never drawing attention. Her uniform is clean, plain, nothing that advertises history or honors. No combat tabs, no morale patches. To most people, she is a nonentity, an efficient, invisible cog. Down in the signal bay. Cable spools and cases of radios crowd the floor. Rowan logs serial numbers and checks status sheets with neat, deliberate handwriting. When someone calls, she nods and turns with economy, not a performance, just discipline. Specialist Moreno jokes that if the army ever runs out of staplers, Rowan will be out of a job. A few laugh, she does not flinch. She slips the files back into the folder and moves on. Rowan's movements are economical, but they carry the invisible markers of someone who's lived through more than paperwork. She stands in doorways so she can see exits and corners without appearing vigilant. She navigates the motor pool with small efficiencies of step, angles that keep balance and momentum in dangerous places where ground shifts. Are you Morris? People fill gaps with stories. In the smoke pit, it's whispered she failed a fast course, that she'd washed out of aviation, that she'd been parked in signals because she was soft. None of it is in the file. Her personnel record says only recent transfer, signal, nothing else. People like to place her, soft admin, no grit. A corporal sees Rowan cross the lot and says, "You can tell she's soft." Someone else echoes it like a verdict. Staff Sergeant Lucas Redden watches instead. He's a man steady enough to tell what matters from junk. He notices how Rowan completes tasks, anticipates questions, and maintains calm under pressure. When Redden drops a half-finished packet on her desk and apologizes for the deadline, she nods, sorts the mess methodically, and returns it ready for signatures. He feels the competence in silent, practical ways. Small observations collect like clues. The way Rowan checks her watch against a wall clock, the way she angles her stance when loud noises occur, the measured weight shift instead of a flinch. He attributes these to attention and discipline. Another sergeant, older, watches Rowan walk away and feels a tug of something recognizable, the gait and cadence of someone who had been trained in more hazardous spaces. He almost asks where she learned to move that way, but he does not. Whispers turn sharper. A morning after the scissors, the halls hang thin with whispered versions of what happened. Soldiers pause in their tracks at the sight of her uneven, jagged haircut and the raw nick near her hairline. Private jokes and small, cruel theories ripple through the battalion. During a joint communication drill briefing, Rowan stands to distribute updated channel cards. The operations captain stops her with a public rebuke. "Let the real soldiers handle it." Snickers follow. Rowan sits back down, her expression does not crack, but the silence around her hardens, it becomes colder. The jokes stick to the air. Later, on the motor pool, a couple of soldiers remark on her haircut as if it proves she'd talked back to a general and deserved to be humiliated. Rowan continues her tasks, gait unaffected, the weight of the rumor collecting with each step. Reddiction. Redden watches Rowan move slower now. It isn't pain, it is caution. The hallway seems heavier when she walks. He feels something twist in his chest watching her at the desk. Later, when a message light blinks on the office phone, he picks up and hears, "Specialist Hale, General Briggs wants to see you now." Rowan smooths her uniform and walks toward the general's office, an almost imperceptible pause at the handle. General Briggs' office later. Briggs sits alone this time. No aides, private now, it is meant to be personal. He tells her attitude is a problem and warns of reassignment to humbling details, motor pool, entry-level duties. Rowan holds still. She does not plead or justify. She inhales once, then lets it out. Silence is her answer. Briggs stumbles because her silence is not submission. It unsettles him. He dismisses her with a curt gesture. She salutes and leaves, but something in her walk has shifted. Edge has replaced the old calm. An older sergeant major pauses as she passes and recognizes the gait she carries, the precise footprint of someone whose training belonged to another world. A memory surfaces like an echo. A slow chain. For days after, the base ticked outward as before, but underneath, things have altered. Row after row of small proofs accumulate. In the motor pool, she lifts a heavy communications crate with one hand as if it were a toolbox, surprising mechanics into silence. During a scheduled signal blackout test, Rowan kneels beside a junction box and with quick, exact movements manipulates circuits and clamps, ending the blackout in moments. She uses a small tool from her pocket with the ease of someone who carries it like an old companion. Mechanics, NCOs, and even skeptical soldiers watch differently now. A ranger temporarily assigned to the base notices coordinates tattooed along the edge of Rowan's sleeve and recognizes them for what they are: exact, deliberate locations. He frowns. An observant trainer at the range sees Rowan offer a micro-adjustment, a gesture used by JTACs and special ops instructors, and he blinks at someone who shouldn't know such subtle corrections. Conversation. Curiosity supersedes mockery. Soldiers swap notes. The rumor rackets die down. Redden approaches Rowan in the supply room and asks gently, "Who trained you?" Her answer is cautious and concise. "I've had good mentors." It is not a lie, it is also not the whole truth. He walks away with more questions than before, a protective feeling growing where suspicion once lived. The joint exercise, the collapse. A major joint training exercise hums into motion. Rangers, aviation crews, and intel analysts converge under clear skies. Drones drone, helicopters hum, tactical chatter threads the air. 11 minutes into the exercise, static ripples across the networks. A soft pop becomes a cascade. Feed distortion multiplies, then collapses. Radios go dead. Drone feeds freeze. Satellite overlays vanish. Panic, measured but urgent, takes over the tent. Rowan remains still for one held breath. Then she moves with quiet purpose. She steps into the auxiliary node panel, fingers flying across internal switches like a pianist finishing a practice piece. An intel captain orders her away. She ignores him. She flips a sequence that should be beyond her authorization, manually overrides circuits, and keys a field handset with a clipped, authoritative tone. Rowan. Soft, precise into handset. Switch bandwidth routing to low-frequency fallback. Reroute drone telemetry to node 4. Push aircraft location trackers to emergency overlay. Confirm gridlock restoration. Terms and timing tumble out, commands that belong to someone who routes lives, not paperwork. Radio channels obey, drone feeds jitter and then sharpen into motion. Aircraft trackers return. In less than a minute, the network is restored. The tent, which had been a cathedral of static and confusion, drops into stunned silence. Everyone looks at Rowan with the same incomprehension. Brigadier General Marcusthorne. Brigadier General Marcus Thorne, who had commanded a top-secret aviation detachment years ago and carries quiet authority like a second uniform, steps into the tent. He pauses as if reconciling a memory with the present. Then he whispers a name, "Hale, Rowan Hale." Recognition floods the room. Thorne's eyes burn with it. He says what the rest have not yet thought aloud. Rowan Hale was the former warrant officer 3 whose ISR work in top-tier units was erased from public records when operations went dark. She was thought reassigned, protected, removed from the roster of the living records. The room freezes as truth lands like a physical force. Thorne steps forward and not with rigid regulation but with the slow gravity of earned respect, brings his hand up in a salute. Soldiers rise to their feet. Aviation officers remove caps. Rowan, who had stood motionless through the moment, returns the salute. No fanfare, no announcement, just the quiet meeting of two hands between people who understand what deeds and silence cost. Reckoning. General Briggs' face collapses into a private ruin. Remember the scissors? The humiliation? He quiets beneath what he has done. Thorne's revelation reframes every small cruelty as a misstep that will not be ignored. Redden feels the weight of shame and admiration coiled together. For months they had misread courage for meekness. Rowan speaks only once. She offers no grand speech, no recounting of classified missions. Sir, she says, simply, I was following orders, nothing more. The purity of that line dissolves pride and resentment alike. Thorne breathes a long, ragged exhale. The room is stripped of pretense. After that day, Fort Brenton changes more in the quiet than in formal announcements. High Command offers to reinstate her old rank, to pull the cloak of protection back and put her into a role that matches her history. Rowan declines with the same composure she has always shown. Rowan. Soft. I'm where I need to be. She chooses duty over spotlight. She refuses the rearrangement of her life for the sake of ceremonial repair. She continues to file reports, check logs, and steady the battalion for the next training cycle. She resists being placed on a pedestal because the work, the service, remains what grounds her. Aftermath. Word of Briggs spreads along administrative veins. Complaints, witness statements, the charge of abuse of authority. He is examined and his position adjusts beneath him. Investigation, removal, resignation, the details circulating in the base's careful whispers. Rowan never seeks to watch the proceedings. She keeps walking the same halls with measured steps. Respect arrives not as noise but as small recalibrations. Rangers nod shortly in corridors. Junior soldiers look at her with quiet awe. Mechanics who once doubted stand aside for her in close quarters. Redden watches her with protective pride now, handing her stacks of documents comes with a tenderness he once reserved for family. Narrator VO. True strength rarely shouts. Often it moves quietly through crowded halls unseen by those who mistake silence for weakness. The most underestimated person in the room may carry the heaviest battles. EXD Parade Field Dusk. Rowan crosses the parade field at dusk. The short, uneven hair the general cut frames her face in the amber light. The wind brushes it, long shadows stretch across the grass. No whisper follows, no gaze lingers with a need to place or explain. She walks with the same steady rhythm, the same careful balance honed in years of service no one asked to know about. A quiet peace settles over her like a worn blanket. Narrator VO. Humility does not shout for praise, it moves unseen and steady. Respect comes not from stripes or volume but from character, from choosing service over glory and from bearing burdens in the silence between commands. As the sun slides behind the hangars, Rowan pauses at the fence line and looks toward the horizon. She inhales once as if cataloging the day and exhales the sort of steady breath that belongs to people who have seen too much to be surprised. The parade field empties behind her. She keeps moving forward.